All right, YouTube. This is Detroit's HPTV coming to you out of Detroit. Back with a video on this Tuesday morning. I want to do a reaction video to the situation with Donald Trump coming to Detroit. You know, Donald Trump came to Detroit and then he said, you don't want the rest of the country to look like Detroit. And people tried to play it like he was trashing Detroit. They tell you about Detroit's economic comeback downtown after Detroit went bankrupt, but that's downtown. The inner city where the average black American lives is not like downtown. It's a total opposite. Going downtown is almost like going to a resort because it's beautiful downtown. Detroit has a beautiful downtown, but the inner cities are hemorrhaging. Now, what I want to show you is all the new jobs that they say they created. Check out these new jobs.
How you doing? Yeah, hey. Take a picture on this side. I can't see you. Yeah. Where you guys from? Oh, Southwest.
I'm gonna play it for you one more time.
How you doing? Yeah, hey. Take a picture on this side. I can't see you. Yeah. Where you guys from? Oh, Southwest.
Now, first of all, the guy said that on the background over there, I guess the foreman or the supervisor, he said they were from Southwest Detroit, which is mostly Mexican Hispanic. But these workers are not from Detroit. They're not from America. They're immigrants. So what good does it do black Americans for them to create jobs only for them to go to the immigrants? What good is the Biden administration when all the resources that should be going into the black community are going to immigrants? So when Trump says, do you want Detroit? Do you want the rest of the country to look like Detroit? It's serious because downtown is beautiful. And I'm a proud Detroiter. But when they get to talking about unemployment and unemployment is down, it's because of how many people they've cut benefits. When they get to talking about the job market, do you know that my nephews and people I know can't find jobs? Then they're using background checks to eliminate black men from jobs, but they're not checking who the immigrants is and what their background is. How do you do a background check on an illegal immigrant? So for them to come at Trump through mainstream media and act as if Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have ever helped or did anything from Detroit, that's a falsehood. That's a fake narrative. Ever since the Clintons and back with NAFTA, they've been destroying the job market in Detroit for black Americans. So you have a lot of people working fast food restaurants and other jobs, and there are wealthy people in Detroit, but for the masses, that's not the case. So I want you to watch this clip. It's for fair use under the 1976 Copyright Act, and we're going to discuss it.
Imagine a financial app that lets you spend, save, and invest like never before. I'm announcing a detailed plan. Welcome into the Pulse of this Thursday, where we talk all things people, power, and politics as we do every night. And tonight, there is a lot to get to, including Donald Trump's visit to Detroit today and his comments about the Motor City causing some controversy. We're also zeroing in on the economy and the plans both of the candidates have been touting. What does this really mean for you? We'll get to all of that in just a second. But first, as the South continues to grapple with hurricane damage from Helene and now Milton, which made landfall last night, President Biden is now calling on Congress to return from their pre-election recess to help with relief funding. He's asking lawmakers to approve more money for the Small Business Administration and trying their best to help with low-interest loans to homeowners and businesses that are dealing with the aftermath of this storm. They're really trying their best to recover from these catastrophic effects that you're looking at from the storms. After Hurricane Helene hit, the agency said it had less than $100 million for new loans. And now there's Milton, and there's more concern brewing that there simply isn't enough money.
That's in discussion now, and I don't want to give you a mislead you. I think in terms of the SBA is pretty right at the edge right now. And I think the Congress should be coming back and moving on emergency needs immediately. And they're going to have to come back after the election as well. Because this is going to be a long haul for total rebuilding. It's going to take several $1 billion.
You know, this show is a refresh on civics class, so important to note the SBA, the Small Business Administration, is different from FEMA, which does have the resources needed to address urgent concerns that they need right away. Following Milton's landfall, multiple deaths have been reported, with rescue missions like the one you just saw behind me still underway. But local officials say the state largely avoided a worst-case scenario, thanks in part to one of the biggest evacuation efforts in the history of Florida. Former President Trump back in Michigan today, speaking in front of the Detroit Economic Club. He touched on a variety of issues, most notably the industry that drives the Motor City. More on that in a second. But it's not the talk about the auto industry that's getting a lot of buzz. It's the former president's statements about Detroit while he was here. Trump was talking about NATO and what other countries pay in the group, and then made this controversial comparison.
I think Kamala, it's not going to be high on her list. I don't think anything that we're talking about today is high on her list. The whole country is going to be like, you want to know the truth? It'll be like Detroit. Our whole country will end up being like Detroit if she's your president. You're going to have a mess on your hands. She destroyed San Francisco. She destroyed, along with Newsom, California. And we're not going to let her do that to this country. We're not going to let it happen. So...
But here's the issue. Detroit's recovery and emergence from bankruptcy has been well documented, and the city has gotten a lot of praise for the fact that it's actually thriving now. We don't have to tell you that this year alone, it's hosted the NFL Draft, March Madness.
Now I'm going to look at the comments over here. In the comments, there are a lot of Detroiters saying that the news stations are disingenuous. They're not showing anything but downtown. Show the truth, not just downtown. Didn't GM just move out of Detroit? Question mark. So, and then I showed you in the beginning where those new jobs went. So, I mean, as Americans, what does it look like to have so many immigrants taking up all the jobs and resources in your community? Kamala is not going to change that. She just rolled out her economic plan, she says, for black men. She can do that now. They could do something now. That's to kind of coerce you into voting Democrat. They tried to use Obama to shame you into voting Democrat. But at the end of the day, why would we vote for our own demise? Why would we vote for things that are not in our own best interest? When you drive through Detroit and you see the workers, it's almost like a total new workforce in the construction area, in other jobs. So when he says he's not going to let Kamala Harris and the Biden administration turn the rest of the country into Detroit, I didn't take that as offense because I'm here. I live in Detroit. I see the homelessness in Detroit. I see the veterans that are homeless in Detroit. I see the young people without jobs. I see whole communities in Detroit that don't even have a high school. Think about that. Have you ever seen a city that doesn't even have a high school like Highland Park? So at what point do we look past mainstream media's narrative of Democratic ran cities is good for black people? How? How? When we're the last to get resources, the last to get hired, and the first to be fired in our own city. And they mad at Trump because he called it out. But if you live in Detroit, you see it. You see how dangerous it is. You see how impoverished a lot of areas are. You see the truth. So at what point do we just recognize and say, they're lying, this is trash? They like to call Donald Trump a lie because maybe he does speak off the cuff and a little blunt. But I showed you right in my neighborhood who has the jobs. Check out some more of this.
And this is the Grand Prix. Oh, yeah. Lions playoff games and Tiger playoff games as well. Lowest unemployment rate in 50.
You see how they talking about the Tigers game and the NFL draft? It's the same playbook. They're saying that the people are living better because the Lions won. The city is doing better because the Tigers in the playoff. The city is doing better because the rich people downtown are happy. But that's not the common man. That's not the everyday man.
Year's lowest crime rate, and Detroit is hosting, of course, their NFL draft. Actually broke draft records for attendance and got universal praise, including by Trump himself during a one-on-one interview with me this spring. Trump told me, "I love Detroit, and it isn't just us patting ourselves on the back. This is not a partisan issue." Time magazine named Detroit one of the world's greatest places. Why? Because of the city's economic recovery. Money magazine, just this year, ranked Detroit as one of the top 50 places, one of the best places to live in the country, noting its cultural significance. And then Condé Nast Traveler selected Detroit as one of the best places to go and visit, citing its music scene, mobility, innovation, and rebuilding. And by the way, former President Trump's exact words to me this past May was, "Detroit has done a great job." He went on to say, "I love Detroit," after telling me he's happy for the city. Mayor Mike Duggan, who said this on X, formerly Twitter, obviously is pretty passionate. He said Detroit just hosted the largest NFL draft in history. The Tigers are back in the playoffs. The Lions are headed to the Super Bowl. Crime is low and our population is growing. Lots of cities should be like Detroit, and we did it.
Now listen, again, he's touting sports. And then he says the city is growing because they're filling it with illegal immigrants. Mike Duggan has definitely done a bang up job with downtown Detroit. But the inner city, he hasn't done too much of anything. And people in Detroit know it. So when you think about what's really going on and why at this last hour, Kamala Harris is now interested in what benefits black men, I don't believe her. I believe that she will make any promises that she possibly can to get elected. And then she will be missing in action from Detroit like they were for the last several years. Detroit didn't even start seeing these politicians until election time, like anywhere else, I guess. But don't say unemployment is down when you're cutting the benefits from black Americans and then passing the resources off to illegal immigrants and giving them a job. It's almost treasonous that they are removing black people from Detroit and replacing them with a new voting bloc. That's all it is. A new voting bloc that will be loyal to the Democratic Party. But what does that do to the rest of us? What kind of new wave gentrification is this that we can't see what's going on right in front of us? When you look and you ride through Detroit and you see who's building up the roads, you know they are not Americans. But you see Americans at the unemployment office and going to try to get resources that they can't get. So as they tout Mike Duggan, the only thing they keep saying, football game, baseball, the draft, all these things that are sport and entertainment is just the same Democratic playbook. From Meg Thee Stallion, all the stars, Magic Johnson, everybody comes out and wants to misrepresent what's really going on in our communities. And then they want to tell you that you are ridiculous and crazy if you don't want to vote for Kamala. Who wants to vote for someone who won't even acknowledge their own true identity? That's a level of deception and deceit that most people don't even stoop to. Let's watch some more of this clip.
All without Trump's help. By the way, Mayor Duggan will be on the Pulse Friday night to talk more about this issue, this topic. We'll also have Brian Pennebecker with UAW for Trump with If Trump's Words Were Actually Fair. We're going to give you both sides. And Governor Whitmer also blasted Trump in a statement sent to us, saying this: Detroit is the epitome of grit, defined by winners willing to get their hands dirty to build up their city and better their communities, something Donald Trump could never understand. Now, she went on to say this: Detroit's hard work and hustle built the best cars and trucks in the world. The city defined art, music, and culture for decades, from Aretha and Diana to Eminem and Stevie, who all called Detroit home. And Detroit is growing by the minute as people.
That's what I'm talking about. You see how Gretchen Whitmore, Gretchen Whitmore, she tricked she tricked them. You know, they thought that she did them a favor when she locked the city down and locked the state down during the pandemic. And for some reason, she's following the same playbook. Detroit was home to Stevie Wonder, Aretha Franklin, and so on and so on. What does that got to do with the price of butter and bread and jobs? Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder, football games, basketball games. This is what they offer Black Americans: entertainment and lies. Has a community so divided over an Indian woman? What's really going on? We need a whole new political re-education if you can get upset and say that Detroit is so good when the people in Detroit know how bad it really is. Again, stop showing just downtown, because we already know downtown is beautiful. That's where the resources went. Let's listen to some more of this.
Will fall in love with this special place. So keep Detroit out of your mouth. And you better believe that Detroiters won't forget this in November. Well, now to the former president's comments on the economy and auto industry. Trump touched on a number of issues, including the federal interest rate cut, manufacturing, and something on a lot of people's minds: jobs in Michigan.
The 4-year-long nightmare for the American auto worker ends the day I take the oath of office, January 20th. It ends. Today, I am announcing a detailed plan to save the American auto industry and bring millions and millions of jobs back to our shores, and very quickly. If you vote for Trump, and you will see a mass exodus of manufacturing jobs, but from Mexico to Michigan, from Shanghai to Sterling Heights, and from Beijing to right here in beautiful Detroit. Wait till you see Detroit.
And while talking about the auto industry today, the former president took a jab at UAW President Sean Fain with this.
You have the worst union leader probably in the history of, maybe in the history of our country, for any business. I don't know him. Sean Fain is a disaster.
You know, no love lost between these two guys. Fain.
Let me tell you what Sean Fain did. Sean Fain came out and told the union to back Biden-Harris. He backed Biden-Harris, and they had a temporary strike. And a few months later, they started laying off the workers. I have several family members that have been laid off this month in October by Stellantis. At some point in time, we have to read between the lines. Why they talked all this talk about how good Detroit is, but the only thing they could mention was football games, Tigers games. Went to talking about Aretha Franklin and all that. That's what they think of us. They think we slow. They think that a lion game is more important than economic stability to Black people. They think the Tigers in the playoffs is enough to make us forget how impoverished a lot of these communities are. They think that we are so slow that we would actually put loyalty behind a party that has betrayed black people so many times it's uncountable. But they don't want you to be conservative. Trump bad, Kamala good. Who actually believes that at this late point? Well, that's all I got for you on Tuesday morning, this Tuesday morning. I'm signing to you out of Detroit. Support the nonprofit Detroit's Black Thought and Ash Collective. The Cash App is in the channel description. Salute to all patriots. Y'all keep your head on the swivel. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace.